G'day guys and gal. People like to say that there are no good guys in Warhammer 40k, just varying degrees of evil. And while they do have a point, after all the Imperium of Man, the good guys, is a wildly corrupt, fascist, regressive and genocidal civilization, but the Dark Eldar's sadistic need to constantly torment and torture innocents, or Chaos's desire to do more or less the same thing, makes corruption and fascism look like Bernie Sanders in his winter mitts. However, despite how evil the Dark Eldar, Chaos and the Tyranids are, there have been times where these naughty pieces of shit have stepped up to the plate and been the hero that no one asked for but everyone needed. Either wittingly or not, sometimes the bad guys save the day, and that is worth talking about. Before we get started, I have a bit of an announcement. As I've said, the future of Major Minis got a bit uncertain due to a few things I can't talk about yet, but things are looking good and I think we sorted it. However, all Majorkill Mini STLs will be taken down from the website within 48 hours from now. The STLs were never a particularly solid or even intelligent part of the business. I just sold them more so for you guys and gals with printers to save money. However, now that the STLs are causing problems on the back end, combined with factors such as people printing and distributing Major Minis without a license, quality control being non-existent for other people's prints, and a bunch of other headaches, means that STLs need to be taken behind the barn and put down. For those that bought the STL packs, I will endeavor to keep updating them with the new minis for as long as I can, but due to reasons, I can't promise that will be indefinite. If that does stop updating, then I'll send out a big voucher or something to all STL pack holders. I kept the STLs around for as long as I could. Even this final 48-hour extension took a lot of effort to secure, so if you wanted to pick up the Major Mini STLs before they're gone forever, then the 48 hours starts now. Today we'll go over 5 times the bad guys stepped up to the plate and saved the day. We will detail what they did, how it saved the day, and why they did it. Let's get into it. The Dark Eldar are evil as shit. That isn't a debate in the slightest. In order to sustain their bodies and souls, they literally have to inflict pain and agony, hence why they are constantly raiding and raping their way through the galaxy. However, they are still Eldar, and on occasion will aid their less sadistic Craftworld or Exodite cousins. After Ianden had their fuck-off battle for survival against High Fleet Kraken, a battle that saw most of them dead, the remnants of Kraken attempted to travel to High Fleet Leviathan in order to be absorbed by it, hence pass on an extremely rich deposit of Eldar DNA. The Eldar foresaw that with this DNA, Leviathan could make an army of super Eldar Tyranid hybrids that would be a bit of a no-no. Hence Ianden and Baal Tan teamed up to stop them by intercepting Kraken at a maiden world that Kraken was attacking. The Harlequins were able to convince Vect, the Lord of the Dark Eldar, to send a massive fleet of Dark Eldar along with a super weapon that could finish off the Nids. It was called a Fireheart. However, there was a catch. Either due to misfortune or more likely, the Dark Eldar being assholes, the Fireheart had to be manually activated by a Farseer. Hence the Farseer who did it was guaranteed to die and be taken by Slaanesh. With the combined Dark and Craftworld Eldar fleets, the Nid ships were destroyed as the Fireheart was detonated on the Maiden World, annihilating Kraken and preventing the DNA upload to Leviathan. Without the Dark Eldar forces or the Fireheart, it's unlikely the Craftworlders could have stopped Kraken. But why did the Dark Eldar do this? Well, an Eldar is still an Eldar. A hypercharged Leviathan isn't good for anyone, so it was a smart term long move to prevent it. The Dark Eldar don't want to sound sentimental though, so they just claim they found the fact that Ianden was a ghost ship full of millions of Wraithguard hilarious and wouldn't want to see it ruined. Either way, the day was saved. Flipping the coin, this next example is when the Nids were the unlikely heroes of the day. With the creation of the Great Rift and the expansion of Chaos, the Tyranid hive mind identified Chaos as a major threat, hence it adapted, creating High Fleet Kronos. A high fleet with more long-range weaponry and more powerful anti-warp power in order to act as a hard counter to demons and warp spaghetti. When Admiral Grossion engaged a massive Chaos fleet at the Wolf's Head Nebula, things weren't going great. The enemy had a despoiler-class battleship and the Imperial fleet was outnumbered. They were probably all going to die. But then out of fucking nowhere, stone-cold High Fleet Kronos barges onto the battlefield. At first the Imperials are like, fuck me mate, really? But when they see Kronos completely ignore them and beeline straight for the Chaos fleet, smashing into it and swarming the despoiler ship, Admiral Grossin is like, alrighty then, and fires a final salvo at his enemies before getting the fuck out of there. Without that Tyranid intervention, the Imperials would have been doomed. The reason Kronos did this was a matter of priority. That Chaos fleet would have destroyed many worlds that the Nids wanted to eat, so it waited until it was distracted and then launched its attack at the best time possible. Its intentions were not noble in the slightest, but at the end of the day, the Imperials Imperials were saved. Although the Necrons have quickly become a bunch of likable, interesting, grumpy old men, they are definitely not the good guys. Many Necron dynasties actively genocide everyone else. The Silent King is trying to cut off the warp from real space, dooming everyone with a soul, and Trazyn the Infinite has kidnapped thousands of people for his own amusement. They are not good guys. However, that doesn't mean they can't save the day. There was an Imperial world that held an ancient, extremely valuable Necron tomb deep within it, that Trazyn and Orc had been studying for a long time. They didn't care the Imperials were on the world, as it didn't mess with the tomb or anything. However, an Orc fleet was heading to the world, which was definitely a problem. The destructiveness of the Orcs wasn't good for the special tomb's longevity. Hence, while Orc engaged the Orc fleet in orbit, Trazyn led his warriors on the surface. During the battle, Trazyn ignored the human defenders and focused on fighting the Orcs, all in plain view of the Imperials. Through his effort, the world was saved, and the Imperials actually celebrated it. The citizens created a statue of Trazyn that they placed in their main plaza, whilst they depicted the battle in stained glass windows. Now this might sound super fucking heretical, however the Imperials had believed that the Necrons were a Space Marine chapter called the Silver Skulls, that happened to be taller and skinnier than other Space Marines. Trazyn found this hilarious and quite endearing. When he found out that the Inquisition was going to remove his statue, he stole it for himself, whilst Orc destroyed the stained glass windows out of spite. Unfortunately, due to pulling a prank on Orc by releasing a Genestealer Patriarch on the world without knowing what it actually was, the world would then get overrun by Genestealers and then Exterminatist. So yeah, he did end up fucking it up through a prank gone wrong, but that doesn't take away from the fact that he was once responsible for saving it. When you save the day doesn't have to be a world or a culture. Sometimes it can be as simple as getting justice for a poor innocent girl. Sevatar of the Night Lords is an awesome character and a certified badass, but he's also still an evil piece of shit, reveling in the suffering of his enemies and actively serving the forces of hell. But that doesn't mean he's gonna let bad shit just slide. Professionals have standards. When he was captured by the Dark Angels during an ill-fated boarding attempt on their flagship, his latent psychic abilities allowed him to communicate with a young astropath on board. They became friends, and she told him how a senior astropath beat her so badly that she was now paralyzed and more or less lived full-time in a life support pod. She saw the honorable side to Sevatar and wanted to help him escape. Using her power, she helped him get out of his cell, but instead of fleeing to an escape craft, he beelined into the astropathic choir, only stopping to see his young friend in person briefly before then proceeding to the senior astropath. He slowly, ruthlessly choked the man to death with the very weapon he used to paralyze the young girl. As Dark Angels surrounded Sevatar, he said, "I am judgment, I am punishment, and I surrender," allowing himself to be taken back to his cage without resistance. Sure, he wasn't able to stop her from being hurt in the first place, but justice was served, and the sadistic old astropath could never hurt her or anyone else ever again. Why did he do this rather than take an easy escape? Well, despite being evil, Sevatar wasn't this mustache-twirling villain. An innocent had suffered an injustice, and as twisted as they were, the Night Lords were pretty big on justice. So much so that Sevatar chose it over his own freedom and escape. Every time I read about Sevatar, I get both happy and sad. Happy that he exists, but sad to see what the Night Lords could have been instead of what they have become. The final example of bad guy saving the day is a bit of a controversial one, but the lore is so fucking good that I have to mention it. Orcs are not good people. They bring death and destruction wherever they go, and often revel in torturing and killing innocents. However, they are still a lot better than Tyranids. When an Imperial army and Orc army were engaged in a long and semi-boring war over a world, things got spicy when the Tyranids invaded. Seeing that they would both get destroyed, the Orcs and Imperials decided to team up, and the results were spectacular. The Imperial discipline of the Guardsmen combined with the Orcs' fanatical shock and awe tactics were too much for the Tyranids to adapt to. Time and time again, the heretical alliance smashed Tyranid forces. Orcs would hold the line while Imperial citizens were evacuated. Imperials would protect Orc flanks and charges. Towards the end of the campaign, the Orc war boss and the Imperial general, who originally were mortal enemies, became friends, as their soldiers engaged in friendly competitions to one-up each other against the Nids. With such good synergy and teamwork, the Tyranids were crushed. Thus the Orcs, the bad guys, saved the day. But then they kinda fucking didn't. The ending of this tale is quite sad. As the last of the Tyranids were beaten, the Orc war boss turned on the Imperial commander and captured him. The war boss acted quite sheepish about it, like he was sorry. The Orc said, "Surely you also plan on betraying us," and the Imperial commander lied and said that he was going to. The Orc war boss then lectures the commander about teaming up with aliens and trusting them before getting the commander's subordinate to kill him with his own sword. The Orcs then fall upon the Imperial soldiers and massacre them. It's actually quite sad. The Imperials were going to peacefully part way with the Orcs in the most wholesome of wholesome endings, but instead, the Orcs sheepishly butchered them. The fact that the Imperial commander lied about him also planning on betraying the Orcs to save face got me right in the feels, so I guess the day wasn't saved. Maybe a little bit, since I believe that many Imperial citizens were evacuated with the help of the Orcs, but it still almost shows an amazing example of the bad guys saving the day. I mean, at the end of the day, they are bad guys, so you can't really expect them to not have a catch. The thing I like about all the above examples is that it isn't just bad guys becoming good and doing a good thing. It's bad guys chasing their own agenda, which happened to be a good thing in the above examples. The only times the bad guys deliberately save the day, they end up being dicks about it, either by the Dark Eldar forcing Eldar Farseers to blow themselves up, or the Orcs betraying their Imperial allies. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up a Major Mini. The STLs are going offline in 48 hours, but the physical models will be there indefinitely. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more shit content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.